We live in a society today that's controlled by the media that is progressively becoming more and more dominated by violence, especially in the video game industry. And I think as a culture we can read a bunch of articles and we listen to psychologists and we can all kind of wrap all video games together and kind of frown on them and give them a bad rap. But are all video games bad for our society? Nay! Are there some video games out there that are actually a benefit? Today, it will be my goal to persuade you that the new class of musical video games are a good thing for society, as they take the place of violent video games, which are negative, produce social skills as they're social and band-oriented games, and as they introduce the gaming audience to music, which is a great way to express yourself. So first, let's look at how musical video games can be a good thing as they take the place of violent video games. But first, let's ask ourselves, are these violent video games in need of replacement? Are they really a bad thing? As Dr. Craig A. Anderson states, who's a psychologist, he says that high levels of violent video game exposure can be linked directly to delinquency, fighting, and violent criminal behavior. In fact, psychologists and experts pretty much all around the spectrum agree now that there's at least a correlation, maybe not a direct cause, but at least a correlation between aggressive behavior and high exposure to violent video games. So these violent video games can have negative effects on our behavior. Also, though, they can trivialize war and death. And let me elaborate. How many of you guys out there have played Halo at all? For those of you who haven't, way to go, ladies. For those of you who haven't, let me give you a scenario. Halo, the game I played, is a lot like this. You're in a room about this big with 30 other guys who are all trying to kill each other. You spawn in, point your gun, try and get a round of bullets off, throw a couple grenades, pray for some kills, and die. It's really fast, it's really intense, and it's really about as far from real war as you can get. But now, the scenario we find ourselves in is 10 and 12-year-old kids who play these games for days and days and months on end. And it's really the only picture of war they see, these video games. Whether it be Halo or Call of Duty or Rainbow Six, whatever it is, all these just massive, intense war games, not only do they stimulate a false sense of war, but they separate war from death. Because as you play even the more realistic ones, you know, you can rush the beach at D-Day, but even if you die, you respawn. You're alive again. And, you know, it's not as fun to be careful and try and do it without dying. It's way more fun to run to the middle of the battlefield, you know, just surround you, like get outside, like in the middle of the plaza and just snipe everyone out. And I think that's teaching this audience that doesn't really see what war is really like. Sure, they hear about it, they know it's bad, and maybe subconsciously they'll say, oh no, you know, this isn't what I think about war. But subconsciously, this is all they see. And it trivializes war, it makes war into entertainment, and it separates the seriousness of death from war. ParentReport.com, in an article on teenage hobbies, talks about violent video games and goes so far as to say that these violent video games can even have addictive tendencies and lead to identity crisis. World of Warcraft's a really popular online game going around right now. Let me tell you some stories just to show some identity crisis from their website. There was a 17-year-old Chinese boy who burned his friend alive claiming he was a fire mage. There's a married man, family of kids, and a career who in an intervention admitted that he wasn't fully attentive to his real life because he defined himself more from his game character than who he was on planet Earth. Not only can these addictive tendencies lead to these identity crises where people see themselves more in this virtual world than the real one, but they also lead to habits like obesity and non-social skills, where when these kids are forced to go back to high school, it can lead to a really low self-esteem and really poor development and socially. But a ray of hope doth still shine. In 2004, the new Grand Theft Auto, according to PVCF game sale charts, was the #1 best-selling game, and Halo 2 was #2. But in 2006, Guitar Hero 2 topped the new Grand Theft Auto for the year, #6 to #11. A year later, in 2007, Guitar Hero 3 rolled out on the scene and claimed #4, with Guitar Hero 2 still in the top 20 at #18. PVCF also rates Guitar Hero as the #26 best-selling game franchise in history, with Halo eclipsed at #36. So clearly these musical video games are a good thing, as they're taking the place, as we can see from these game sale charts, of these negative violent video games. But also, they're social and band-oriented games. Let me elaborate. My brother plays a lot of these games. And he bought one a couple months ago, and I wanted to play it with him. He was, you know, unwrapping the plastic, which is always exciting, and got to put it in for the first time. I was like, let's play. And he said, sure, let's do it. And we came to realize that the game was only one player, entirely. Had no option for multiplayer. There are a lot of games coming out like that new Tom Clancy games, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty games, Battlefield games. All of them are made solely for online play. A 1-to-1 ratio of one player in a dark room with one TV, one controller, that's it, isolated. However, Guitar Hero and Rock Band, as we all know, are band-oriented games. Sure, you can play drums, you can sing, you can play guitar alone, and that's all good and fun. But the purpose of the game is to get the band together. And it's a fun, constructive way to get these kids, these gamers, out of their comfort zones. I mean, singing, sure, it's fun, but it takes a step out. It gets your heart beating because you're kind of going out on a limb. You're just exposing yourself a little bit. And even on the instruments, you have to keep up for the good of the band. And together as a band, you succeed, you fail, you play, you sing. You're all out of your comfort zones together. And you're building with one another. Finally, and I believe most importantly, these musical video games introduce the audience to music. Let me share a bit of my personal testimony. When Guitar Hero 2 came out on the scene, I was 16. I was a junior in high school, and I bought it opening day, naturally. But I was really just developing my taste in music. I didn't really have firm taste. I kind of liked everything around the genre. It was kind of a product of whatever was being played around me. And through Guitar Hero 2, I really developed just a love for the electric guitar. I tried playing for a little bit. I found that wasn't really for me, but it's a huge passion of mine. I'm obsessed with the electric guitar in rock music. And it also led me into a lot of rock bands that now I've come to love. I'm absolutely a rock geek. And that's all thanks to Guitar Hero. And I look at that now, and sure, it's a fun hobby, and Guitar Hero gave me that, but it's also one of my favorite ways to express myself. When I'm down, when I'm happy, when I'm in love, when I'm heartbroken, whatever emotion I'm feeling in life, I can use music as a great way to kind of vent that. Just get alone and listen to it. So instead of exposing these, tumultuous teenagers to guns, blood, and gore, why not expose them to music? Which is a great way to express that stuff. Get it out. Let them know how they're feeling, So in conclusion, to summarize, this new brand of video games, we can't be too quick to just lump all video games together and say, oh, they're all a terrible thing for society. We all need to just, burn our Xboxes and all this stuff. Because I believe, and I hope I've come to persuade you, that these new brand of musical video games are actually a good thing for our society, as they're starting to eclipse and take the place of these violent video games, which are the negative ones we think of. As they build social skills, as they're a band-oriented, they're a fun, constructive way to get us out of our comfort zones together. And as they expose the gaming audience to music, which is a great way to express themselves. In Time Magazine's article on the top 100 most influential artists and performers, they included the makers of Rock Band. Steven Van Zandt, the guitar player for Bruce Springsteen, was the one who wrote the article. And to quote him, he said that in the history of rock and roll, Rock Band may just turn out to be up there with the rise of FM radio, CDs, and MTV, end quote. And I would invite you today to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right, Chelsea, what did you think?
Well, I thought it was a great speech. I love listening to him because he's so passionate about everything he talks about. And I thought that you had a lot of great sources and a lot of info backed up with supporting evidence. And I thought overall it was just a really good speech. You interacted with the audience, and it was good. Great.
Okay. I thought that the opening section was really fine. You've got a very clear statement of what the value claim is that you're going to be arguing. You've got an excellent outline of what the structure is going to be. In the body of the speech, I do think you need to develop a couple of the sections a little bit more. The second and the third section, I think, need a little bit more content. That first section's got a lot of research in it, and you're dependent on personal experience and visualization in the other sections, which are not bad things. I'm not saying get rid of those. I just think that they need to be supplemented a little bit more. But you had a very effective conclusion at the end of the speech. Content on the first point, like I said, was extremely solid, and I like the visualizations that you had there, strong emotional appeals. And let's face it, Blake, we generally generally haven't had any complaints about your presentation since the beginning of the semester. You're always doing a good job talking to the audience. You've got one of those very confident ways of communicating with people, and it comes across very effectively. All right, thank you.